Hi, today we'll be talking about how to configure webhooks with different Venly API services. The webhooks can be configured for the wallet API, the NFT API, and the token API. So let's get started. Here I have a mock API server already created using bscepter, and this is my endpoint URL. Let's look at how you can configure webhooks, starting with the Wallet API. From the developer portal under Configuration, click on Wallet API and then click on Create Webhook. Here you need to specify the description for your webhook. It can be anything, and then you need to supply your endpoint URL. Make sure the endpoint URL you specify, it must be able to accept post calls. Continuing on, you need to specify the authentication for your endpoint as well. This is to be done by you, and it is used to make sure that the incoming calls are actually from Venly, or it's used to authenticate the incoming calls from Venly. The type can be basic authentication with a username and password, or it can be an API key with the header name and API key. For this example, I will select basic authentication, type in a username and then password. Let's click create. As you can see, the webhook was added successfully. Now, whenever there is a successful or failed transaction carried out using the wallet API, you will get a notification and webhook. Let's continue on to the NFT API. Here, I already have the webhook configured. For the NFT API, whenever there is a successful or failed NFT contract creation, token type creation, or NFT mint, you will receive webhooks. One thing to note is configuring webhooks for the NFT API automatically configures webhooks for the token API as well. For the token API, you receive webhooks whenever there is a successful or failed ERC20 contract creation or ERC20 token mint. Now that we've created webhooks, let's look at them in action. Here, I have a request body where I'll be transferring some poll tokens from one wallet address to another. Let's go ahead and run this endpoint. I've gotten a response with a transaction hash, which I can use to check through an explorer or check my webhooks. Before I do that, let's move on to our next endpoint, which is creating an ERC20 contract. Let's run this endpoint. As you can see, I've gotten a response and the status is indicated as pending. I can check either through a transaction hash or using the deployment ID. But what does the webhooks look like? Let's open our Receptor, and here I've just received a webhook which is of type transaction succeeded, indicating that the native token transfer that I just carried out was successful. In the request body, you can get all the details, for example, the from address, the to wallet address, and the value. I've just received another webhook as well, which is of type ERC20 contract creation succeeded, indicating that the contract I just created was successful on chain. Just one final endpoint, which is creating an NFT contract. Here I have the request body already filled out. Let's go ahead and run this endpoint. As you can see, I've gotten the response with the status indicated as pending. Similarly, I can check it via the transaction hash or using the deployment ID as well. But let's go to our webhooks and wait for the webhook for the NFT contract creation to arrive. So we've just received another webhook, and this is of type ERC1155 contract creation succeeded, indicating that the NFT contract I just created was successful on chain. So we've received webhooks for the wallet API, the NFT API, and the token API as well. That's all. Thank you.